Hello and welcome, it's Chris from Christopher Holt Training and welcome to this tutorial where we're going to be talking all things spine health. We're going to cover 2 fundamentals of spine health and 3 questions that I get asked regularly regarding how to maintain a healthy spine, how to overcome low back pain and how to build core strength. But before we get into that, I just quickly want to mention my Fundamentals of Spine Health webinar. It covers all that we're going to talk about in this tutorial and much, much more. It's my entire formula that I use with people one-to-one in the gym that want to overcome lower back pain. It's completely free, so if you want to come along, just reserve your spot using the link below. And if you then learn that formula, you can use it yourself. Alternatively, you can come on board with me and work with me as an online client, which is what I'll talk to you more about on the webinar. But if you just want to come and learn the formula, that's absolutely fine as well. So what we'll do now is we'll get straight into part number 1 of how to maintain a healthy spine. Part 1 is very simple. It's the 2 fundamentals of spine health. So this tutorial is based around these two fundamentals. Number 1 is to move from the hips, and number 2 is to maintain the neutral posture of the spine. So in all the parts 2, 3 and 4 that I'm going to be talking about next when we're answering the questions, these are the 2 points and the 2 fundamentals that they're going to be based on. So everything that I talk about is going to be related back to these 2 points. Number 1, move from the hips. Number 2, maintain the neutral posture of the spine. Question 1 that I'm regularly asked with regards to maintaining a healthy spine, back pain and core strength is, can I move my spine? Because there are parts of the industry say that you should be able to freely move your spine and that's how our body is built. And then there are other parts of the industry that are saying you need to maintain the neutral posture of the spine at all times. Well, both of these arguments are correct. It just depends on what stage you are within your health. So if you have back pain, you have to remove any triggers first. So that normally means removing any spinal flexion or any spine twisting. So we need to remove that first. Once we've removed that, we can then go on into our lower back pain rehabilitation. Now, if you're in that back pain rehabilitation, what that generally means is to avoid that trigger that we talked about. So in point number 1, we said we need to remove those triggers. Well, that's what we need to do in part number 2. And that normally means avoiding these flexion positions and any aggressive twisting positions. So in part number 2, we would maintain the neutral spine of the posture. We would also, in both of these first 2 stages, is move from the hip. So when we're lifting, when we're bending, when we're twisting, we would then need to focus on lifting from the hips and leading from that position. Now, if you're in the final part where you're pain-free, you've got a back pain-free history, then you have much more license to be able to twist and to be able to bend. But what we do need to be able to do is make sure we have a large margin for error. So what we need to do is build our core strength, build our core stability, so it allows us to be able to move into these positions where we're twisting, flexing and bending. Because if we can be strong in neutral, it makes us much, let's just say, at less risk of injury when we flex and when we twist and when we bend. So what we're going to do now is do a little bit of practical and look at how we lift, bend and twist. Bending, lifting and rotating are 3 fundamental movements that you need to be able to perform well so you can help maintain a healthier spine. So we're just going to go through, essentially it's 2 movements, but I'm breaking it up into 3 because I'm breaking the lifting into the bending forward and then the lifting part as you come back up. So if we take the lifting part, or the bending and lifting part, what we want to be doing is, this would be our normal start position. We would have a weight down in front of us, and what we want to do is we want to lever from the hips, maintaining that position there. So you can see now I'm moving from the hips and then maintaining that neutral posture through the spine. An easy way to know that you're maintaining the posture through the spine is just to place your hand on your lower back like that, spread your fingers so you can feel what your lower back's doing. And then all you do is exactly the same. You bend forward. As you'll see, I've got a slight bend of the knee here. As I come forward, I'll then feel my limits. If this is as far as I can go, then I might need to bend my knees after. But what I'm doing is I'm leading the movement from that hip position. And then what I'm then able to do is, when I'm able to hold the weight, I then stiffen the torso and then I can do the movement and lift it back into the position that I need. So we're looking at that hip hinge for bending and then lifting back. When it comes to rotating, it's very simple. Now, with these movements, they can take on any sort of position out in everyday life. But what I'm talking about is just the fundamental elements of bending and lifting, and this one, which is rotating. So when we're looking at rotating, what we want to be doing is, again, rotating from the hip. So what we're looking at is this foot points forward, so I'm now rotating on this hip here, and then I'm coming back. So I'm still maintaining that neutral posture through here. Now I can add bending, lifting and rotating into one movement, because I could come down, I would bend and lift, and then come back up. I would bend and lift and come back up. But all the time, I'm maintaining the posture of the spine and then moving the hips and lifting from that position. So when it comes to bending, lifting and rotating, again, lift from the hips and maintain the posture through the spine in whatever form that it takes out in everyday life. Question number 2 is, do I need a flexible spine? Now, from practices like yoga, they promote needing a flexible spine. If you go more into strength training, you tend to find people with less flexible spines. And much like question 1, both of these have their place. But if we're talking about lower back pain, what we don't need is we don't need a flexible spine to be pain-free. So a flexible spine doesn't mean a pain-free spine. Sometimes it can mean a more painful spine. So what we need is the right amount of flexibility. So generally, it's an optimum level in between these two extremes. So if we're talking about strength training, generally they will need more flexibility. If we're talking about yoga practices, generally it doesn't mean that it's going to be pain-free, and it's all about controlling that flexibility that you have. Because if you have too much flexibility, it can become a little bit uncontrolled, and then that's where the pain fallback can come from. So if we have a flexible spine, it's about creating that control. If we have an inflexible spine, it's about creating a little bit more flexibility, but it doesn't have to be flexible as in sort of a gymnastics level. But what we do need in all of these scenarios is symmetry. So we want to be as close to being able to twist to the right as much as we can, but that needs to be even when we twist to the left as well. So we need to create symmetry in our twisting, flexion and extension of the spine. And what we're going to do now is we're going to look at some stretches that can help us do that. There are 2 basic movements that your spine needs to be able to do, and that's rotation and extension. Now it does need flexion, but generally when we go into a flexed position, that's normally associated with poor spine health. So what I'm going to be talking about is the extension part of it. Now we can do that in one stretch. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down into what would be like a seated position. So we're coming down, we've got one leg forward and 90 degrees at the leg, and then we've got one leg to the side, and then again we've got 90 degrees at the knee as well. What we're then going to do, we're then going to place our hands by the front knee. We're then going to walk ourselves round into rotation. So we're now getting some good rotation of the spine. You may even find a little stretch down through the hip as well, because you may be tight through the hip. But we're going to come into this, so we've got our rotation. Now for the extension, we just simply walk our hands back and lift our chest. So you can come back as far as you feel that is comfortable. So you just come back into that position, and then you would hold here. Now if you find this leg starts to curl round with your body as you twist, all you can do is just place this heel against that knee, and that will block that knee moving. So again, you start in this front position with the hands by the front knee, and then you just walk your hands around to the side. Keep walking until you feel that you've got the maximum sort of flexibility or stretch, and then you might just walk your hands back slowly, lifting your chest, maintaining that upright, extended spine position. So that's a nice simple stretch that you can start doing to increase the amount of rotation and extension that you can get from your spine. Finally, in part 4, we're going to answer the question is, how do I protect my spine? And we do that in 3 ways. We have flexible hips, we have active hips, and we have stiffness through the torso. Flexible hips allows us to move from the hips, which is the joints that like movement, and that takes the pressure away from the back that has to do it instead. If we have active hips, these are the muscles that take the brunt of the workload. So again, the muscles of the torso don't have to do as much. And if we can create stiffness through the torso, so we can hold that solid, that holds the spine in place and allows the hips to do their work. So those three things together are going to help you protect your spine in the future. As a way of protecting your spine and making it stronger and more healthy in the future, we're going to look at two exercises. Now, the two exercises are side plank and bird dog. Now, within these two exercises, we get all of three of the things that we talked about in the introduction. So we're going to get our mobile hips or flexible hips. We're going to get our active hips, and we're going to get the stiffness through the torso. So if we start with the bird dog, we'll do the first points 1 and 2. So what we do is we come down onto all fours. We have knees below hips and hands below shoulders. And what we do from here is we extend out, lock the elbow, lock the knee. We maintain the neutral posture, and we want to feel this hip muscle become active. If we lock the knee out by extending the leg and keep that position, you should feel that buttock or that glute muscle go nice and tight. So we go out into that position and we hold the position for a couple of seconds, and then we change. We come back, and then we do exactly the same on the other side. So we come out, again, we extend both arm and leg, lock the knee, lock the elbow, engage the quad and engage the glute here. So we hold that nice and tight, hold for a few seconds, and come back down. So not only are we getting the mobility from the hip where we can extend, but when we get into that full extension, we get the activation from the hip as well, which is what we will want to look for when we lift and when we bend as well. Now for the stiffness in the torso. This comes in side plank. And what we would be doing with this is we would be coming into this position, feet stacked, hips stacked, shoulders stacked. So they're all on top of each other. And then we lift the hips and then we hold that position. Now if we want to add a little bit to it, we can just lift a leg off and we can then bring it back in. And that's just going to enhance how much the torso needs to do to be able to hold you up in that position. So we would go through on the right side, and then we would hold that for a period of time, and then we would go on to the left side. So those two exercises will help you get those 3 points of flexible hips, active hips, and stiffness through the torso. Many thanks for watching this spine health tutorial. Hopefully it's been helpful. Hopefully it's given you some insights in what you can start to do to be able to overcome lower back pain, maintain a healthier spine, or even build some core strength and stability. Now, as I mentioned at the start, my Fundamentals of Spine Health webinar, if you would like to come along to that, just scroll down, click the link below, and you'll be able to reserve your spot. Again, it covers my entire formula that I use with people that want to overcome lower back pain and build greater core strength. It's what I use with people one-to-one in the gym on a daily basis. So it's been tried, it's been tested, it's been updated over the last 10, 11 years that I've been working, and it's built into a solid procedure and formula that you can start using to be able to overcome your lower back pain, maintain a healthy spine, and build core strength and stability. So hopefully I will see you on the Spine Health webinar. My name is Chris from Christopher Hole Training. I'll speak to you in next month's tutorial.